Hey, it's Rob. We're back. We're doing another OffSec Proving Grounds practice machine. This time we're doing a machine called Air. It is a Linux machine rated as intermediate, and I thought it was pretty hard. The initial foothold isn't bad at all. The privilege escalation part required a lot of research and a lot of trial and error on my part. So without further ado, you can see I am on OffSec's VPN, and I do have Air spun up, and here's the IP address. The first thing that we did, as always, is we ran an mmap scan. Service version detection T4, all ports aggressive, and 22 came back and 8888 came back. It's not really clear what's running on that port. In fact, Nmap threw back one of these service unrecognized despite returning data. So, I mean, really, when you see these results, the only thing you can do is go to the website. So when we do, we get this Area 2 web UI. No idea what this software is. I was trying to mess around with it. There's connection info here and everything. I had no idea what to do. So anytime I run across any of these platforms, the first thing that I typically do, if there's not a login that needs to be done, because that first thing would be to look for default credentials, is I look for exploits. And if you type Area 2 exploit into Google, the very first thing that comes up is this. It's a GitHub gist from Jafar Akandali, and it looks like there's a directory traversal vulnerability in Area 2. And it's as simple as doing a curl statement, and you should get local file inclusion. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try it. We're going to copy this statement directly from this GitHub gist. The only thing we have to do is change localhost to the IP address of the machine we're attacking. Okay, so let's pop open a terminal here. And what we'll do is we'll try and see if we get the etc password file back first. Okay, paste. So I pulled this right from that GitHub gist. Okay, all I did was change localhost to the IP address. We're going to hit enter, and we do. We get the password file from the machine returned back to us. And you can see there's a user called DeathFlash, which, you know, in thinking about how we could take advantage of this, because I did try to grab files like the shadow file and a few other things, and, you know, you do get the access denied. So my thoughts were, let's see if DeathFlash potentially has an IDRSA key that we can grab so that we can use that to log in using an identity file. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to run the same command, but I'm going to be looking in the home DeathFlash ssh.ssh folder for IDRSA. So let's see what happens. And we do. We get an IDRSA key back. So this is going to be the way in. So you know what we need to do. We need to grab this IDRSA, or this SS private key, basically, is what we got to grab. So we're copying that. We're going to open another terminal, and we're going to nano IDRSA. Paste the key in there, hit Control-O to save, Control-X to exit, and then we're going to chmod 400 IDRSA to make it read-only. That way we don't get the insecure key error. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try and SSH in as DeathFlash and see what happens. Okay? So you can see we're trying to SSH in as DeathFlash using the identity file that we just created. Okay? And we're going to hit enter. And we do. We get in, and not only that, it looks like we have a full TTY shell. Let's see if I can type clear, and we do. So let's do a pwd. We're in our home directory. Let's do an ls. Let's cat local.txt, and there's the flag. This is where my troubles began. Okay, we do our normal Linux enumeration. So I'm going to start with history. It's probably going to be just mine. We're going to do sudo tac-l. It's asking for a password, which obviously we do not have because we used an identity file to log in. All right. Then we're going to look for files that have the suid set. Copy. Paste. Not a whole lot going on there yet. No. All right. So just in the interest of time, I'll just let you know that I did run linpeas and pspy. And really the only thing that I could see that was strange was there's something running on port 6800, but it is bound to you can't access it remotely. So the way you can actually see that is you can use the SS command, which I believe is socket statistics or something like that. I can't remember, but this is the command that replaced netstat. And I use the TULP flags, and you can clearly see something's running on port 6800. The problem is if you try to access that from here, it's not going to work, okay? We can even try it just to demonstrate. So I'm going to copy the IP address, paste, and if I put 6800 here, it's just going to cycle and say the site can't be reached, okay? Now, one thing that we can do here is we could potentially forward the traffic from 6800 to our local machine. And you know, the weird thing is too, if you do a curl statement over here and we try to do HTTP and we do localhost, which should work because it's running on 0.0.0.0, which means all interfaces. So localhost 6800. You don't really get anything back either, so it's very strange. If we had credentials, we could use SSH to forward that port, but because we don't, really the only alternatives we have are things like, I guess you could do it with Legolo, but it's going to be much easier to just do it with Chisel. So I have a video on Chisel. If you haven't watched it, you should. You know, go ahead and look in my playlist, and you'll find it. It's one of the first videos I made. So what I'm thinking we're going to do is we're going to get Chisel on this machine, and then we're going to forward all the port from 6800 on this machine to port 6800 on my attack machine. All right, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to open my folder, home folder, and I think I have a copy of Chisel on here. I created this folder, this test.txt for later. So if we go to Tools and we go to Chisel, I have Chisel here. So I'm going to open a terminal here, and I'm going to do a Python web server. All right, and we're going to come back to our foothold. Just make sure we're still in our home directory. We are. So I'm going to do a wget http 192.168.45.236 Chisel. All right, so we have Chisel, so we have the chmod plus x Chisel. And if we do an ls-ail, we can see Chisel's executable now. So if we go back to where we have this HTTP server, I'm going to kill this. I'm going to do an ls, and we're in the Chisel directory. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run the Chisel server right from this directory, just because it's easy. So what we're going to do, and actually I will include a link to where you can download Chisel from. So let me just pull this up real quick. See, this 6800 didn't work. Jay Polura, this guy is brilliant. He's written some good stuff. I'll include this link in the description below. This is where you can get Chisel. You just go to the latest releases, okay? So if we come back to run Chisel, the Chisel server port part, you run it on your attack machine, and we use the server argument. And then this port 8001 is how the server is going to communicate with the client. It has nothing to do with the traffic being forwarded. So try and keep that separate in your mind. This is just like the communications channel. Think of it that way, okay? And then the reverse just means that we're basically waiting for a client to connect to us, okay? And the traffic that is being forwarded is coming from the client to the server, okay? So if you hit enter, it says it's listening on all interfaces on port 8001, okay? So now if we go back to our foothold, we have Chisel here, and then we're going to probably want to do, let's get Chisel running, and then we're going to want to open up another terminal so that we can still have command line access to Death Flash, okay? So now that we got the Chisel server running, we want to run the chisel client. This is a little bit more complicated, but I'll explain it, so don't worry. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type clear just to get the screen clear here for us. And then we're going to paste. So what we have here is we are running, and why is that not, do I have a space there or something? Chisel. Is chisel not, am I in the wrong directory? What's going on? Why is that not? It's there, so it should be okay. So we're going to paste clipboard and try this again. So we're running chisel in with the argument client, and then here is the port 8001, which is just like I said, kind of the communication port between the client and the server. So you can see where it's connecting to the server, which is our attack machine, and we're telling it to use 8001 as the communication kind of port. Okay. Here's where the magic actually happens. We want all the traffic from localhost 6800 forwarded to our machine. This part means our machine on 6800. So all the localhost 6800 traffic is getting forwarded to our machine on 6800. So hopefully that's clear, okay? So let's hit enter and cross our fingers. All right, connected. It says it is connected. Let's see if we got anything back on the server side. That'll be interesting to see. It says listening. It didn't really say. Oh, wait, here we go. Session 1. Client version differs from server version, which is a little weird. But that's fine. So it looks like we're communicating here. So the first thing we'll do is we'll try and see if there's anything on the actual website. And this is going to be another hurdle. So just remember, because we're forwarding the traffic now, all the traffic on that machine on 6800 is being forwarded to ours. We can do something like localhost, right? 6800. And it looks like it connected. There's nothing here though, right? So if we view page source, there's nothing, right? So my next thought was, well, let's run nmap to see if what exactly is running. You know, what is this service that's running on 6800? So if we do nmap and we do service version detection T4 on port 6800 aggressively on the local host, because remember the traffic's being forwarded, we'll see what comes back. It should only take a couple seconds. I don't think it'll take too long. But this was pretty difficult, this machine for me. Here we go. So site doesn't have a title. It is the Area 2 downloader service that's used on RPC. Here was where the research had to come in, because I really had no idea what this even meant. Downloader service sounds interesting. Maybe we can download, files to the machine or whatever. But I had no idea how to do that. So I actually went to, I believe it's right here, Area 2's GitHub, and did some searching. And it says here that you can add a download via HTTP. So I read through this and I found this down here. This guy needs to get a medal, because this is literally exactly what we need. So if you're on Linux, he has this. You can apparently use a curl statement to download basically any kind of file from a remote host to the Area 2 server. Now, there's one big problem here. You need a token or a secret or something, and I don't have that. I wasn't exactly sure, because if you just try this as is, it's not going to work, because this area test is not, it's not going to work. You need the actual secret. So I spent probably the next couple of hours trying to figure that out, like where the secret was. Now, spoiler, if you run pspy on this, you will see that this process is running, but the secret is like, it's obfuscated with asterisks in the actual service. So because we're not entitled to see it. So if you look, when you run pspy, you'll see that it's running as a service. But the other thing that you can do, and the way I actually found it by accident, I ran pspy subsequently. I just did a find and then looked for files with name, area, star, right? And then I sent anything that wasn't relevant to dev null, right? Not dev bull, dev null. And let's see what happens here. So, except we're on the wrong machine. We need to do this on the machine we're attacking. I don't know what I was thinking. What we need to do is SSH back in as death flash so that we have access, because we can't use this one because chisel's running. So we're back in as death flash, and now we're gonna run that command, which I didn't copy. So find files with area star, and that's because we want to find all of them, and then we'll send anything that's irrelevant to dev null. Let's see what happens. I screwed up because that shouldn't be coming back like that. What did I do wrong here? That's what I did wrong. It should be name. Okay, so it's find, starting at the root directory, files with the name, area, star, and send anything that's irrelevant to dev null. That's better. All right, so if you look, really, the magic, I mean, a lot of this is nonsense. User bin area 2C, that's a service. I mean, there's a service file, like literally is the first and second files here. So if you look, there's this etc systemd system area service. If we copy this and we try to cat it, here we go. So you'll notice when I told you about pspy, you'll see this running, but this is obfuscated. So now we have the secret. This is the missing piece for this, because we need that secret here. There's a couple of things we need to change here. So the ID, some ID, you want to change that to root, obviously. And then we want to make sure that we have that secret in there, okay? Which goes right here in this token area. So we're going to try and see what we can do here. I think what we'll do is we'll do a test first. So if you remember, I told you, if I go to my home folder, I have this test.txt here. What we're going to do is open a terminal here, and then I'm going to show you the command that I pulled directly from this website. All that I did was put the required things in here, like the ID and the token, okay, which we got from the service that we just pulled. So if I come over here and let me just grab it. This is going to try and download that file test.txt from my computer. And what I forgot to do here is start a web server. So open the terminal. We're going to do a Python web server. And we're going to come back here. So what we're doing is we're basically pulling the file test.txt from my local machine using the chisel localhost 6800. So it's actually, even though it's doing it on my local host, it's actually doing it on the remote server. I know this is kind of difficult to understand, but you got to always keep in mind that we're forwarding all that traffic. So localhost 6800 might as well be that other machine. And then here you can see I changed some ID to root, and I also changed the token to the actual token that we just grabbed, and then I changed this to my web server that I have running. So we want to grab test.txt and we want to drop it in deathflash's home directory. So if we come over here to deathflash and we do a pwd, we're in our home directory. If I do an ls, you see test.txt is not there, okay? So let's go back and let's hit enter, see what happens. So that should have dropped test.txt. So let's see. It did grab it from the web server, and then let's go to deathflash and let's do an ls again. And there's test.txt. So the thought was, now what we could do with this is we could, because it's running as root, we could probably drop an IDRSA key, something like that, into root's SSH folder, and then also put an authorized keys file on there, and then that way we can potentially just SSH into the machine as root. So that's what we're going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to leave this running because we're going to need to serve up more files. I'm going to come over here, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to move this IDRSA key we have. I'll just drop it in downloads, and we're going to create a new key pair. So if you don't know how to do that, you just do SSH tac keygen TRSA, okay? Where do we want the key? We want it in home, Cali, and we're gonna call it ID_RSA, right? Let's just make sure. Yep. Do we want a passphrase? Nope. Do we want a passphrase again? Nope. And we have our key. So let's do an ls AIL. And we do have IDRSA and IDRSA pub. So the first thing that we want to do is, for us to be able to successfully log in via SSH, we need the public key on the server, right, in roots.ssh folder. And we also need a file called authorized keys, which contains the public key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cat IDRSA pub. I'm going to copy this. And then I'm going to nano authorize keys, and I'm just going to basically drop that public key in here. Paste clipboard, Control O, Control X, cat authorize keys, just to make sure it looks good, and it does. So now we have the public key and the authorized keys. So what we want to do is we want to get those files up to the box that we're attacking in the .ssh folder of root. So the way we're going to do that is I'm going to move over this first one, which is authorized keys, using the same exact command. The only difference is the destination, okay? So we're going to paste the clipboard. Same command as we previously ran to get that test.txt over there, you know, with the token and everything, still using the same web server that we're running. We're just dropping into root.ssh. So let's hit enter, and let's see if it got grabbed by the server. It did. So authorized keys should be over there now. All right, so now we got to do the same thing with the IDRSA public key. Copy, paste, and you can see we're dropping IDRSA pub in the same folder that we just dropped the authorized keys. We're going to hit enter. Okay, we're going to make sure it got dumped over there, and it did. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go to our home directory, and we see that this IDRSA public key is here. Okay, so that's good to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to chmod 400 on IDRSA. We're going to do an ls AIL on ID RSA, and it's read-only. So now theoretically we should be able to clear the screen and SSH in as root. And is that the right IP address? 191.100. It looks like it. And we're using the IDRSA key we just created, and we're going to be authenticating against the authorized key and public key we just shipped over to the machine via that curl statement, and we're going to hit enter. And we're in as root. So now we can cd root ls cat proof .txt, and there's the flag. So this machine, although we got through it in about 25 minutes, took me several days because after the initial foothold, it took me a while to figure out how this Area 2 software worked, and the fact that I needed to use Chisel to forward that port traffic on 6800 so that I could use the Area 2 downloader. And then once I figured that part out, I needed the secret, and I hadn't been looking for that, and it didn't pop up in LinPeas when I ran it. So ultimately, I just did some research, ran pspy, figured out that the Area 2 was running as a service, searched for all the files, and saw that the secret was clearly visible when you catted out the service file. If you looked at it while it was running as a process, the secret was obfuscated with the asterisks. So you needed to do that to grab the secret. Once you had the secret, you could use the area downloader using some curl statements to drop a newly created IDRSA public key and authorized key file into roots.ssh folder. And then we use the IDRSA key we created to log in via those mechanisms, the authorized key and public key on the server. Once we were on its root, we were able to cat out the flag. So this was really a tricky machine. Don't be discouraged if it takes you a while. I will include links to everything that I used in the description below. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, just want to say hi, drop a comment below. I do have a Discord server up and running if you'd like to join. All the information is on my YouTube page. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.